How's it going everyone? David from dodmedia. Today we're going to be having a look at the Mars300 by Hollyland. It's an HDMI transmission system so that you can get a picture from your camera to a monitor with no cables in the middle. It's brilliant. So full disclosure, Hollyland actually sent me this as a sample unit to review. You'll see it says demo on the receiver and the transmitter, and all they want from me is an honest review. So this is what I'm going to give them. Let's have a look in the box. So you can see everything is nicely packaged in there, tight. I'm assuming this is the final packaging. We've got the receiver, it says demo receiver Mars300. We've got the transmitter, Mars300 demo. Then we have a few antenna. In fact, they have given a couple of extra antenna in there, just in case you snap one, which is pretty nice. If I can ever get to it. Then we've got a power supply if we wanted to power one of the units. Now it only comes with the one power supply, so if you wanted to power both of them, you'd have to make a hard choice there, which one's going to go battery powered and which one's going to be powered by this. Although you could also theoretically just use a dummy adapter with the battery and a power adapter so that you can get constant power through the dummy adapter. Those are very cheap, you can find them everywhere online. Then there's a little UK adapter for the power. And finally, there's this little adapter plate which can fit onto the front of one of those units. It's a little bit of a shame that there isn't more than one of these. It would have been handy to be able to mount both of these front facing instead of having to rely on the bottom 1/4 inch thread that's on the bottom of the units there. But it is what it is. They only give you one. You'll notice there's no HDMI cable included, either for the receiver or for the transmitter, so nothing to go from your camera to the transmitter and nothing to go from the receiver to your monitor or monitors. Okay, so let's set all this up for the camera and see what it looks like. So you may have seen this in one of my previous videos where I was showing you how I mount the iFocus, the Moza iFocus, so that it's not in front of that plate in an annoying way. And I was using this HDMI transmitter so that I could see the monitor that's on the A6500, which was about 3 meters away from me, so that I couldn't see that little 5-inch monitor on top. So instead I had the monitor here in front of me, right there, and I could see what the camera is seeing. But today I've actually got it set up as I would have it set up during a shoot. So what I've got is the camera outputting an HDMI signal to the Mars300, and then the Mars300 is transmitting that to this receiver, which is then outputting that HDMI signal into this monitor. Now ideally I would also still have the monitor that's on top of the A6500 right now here on the camera so that I could use the HDMI loop out to feed that with that same HDMI signal. That way I can still see what's on the camera when I hit record, because otherwise on the Sony's in 4K, screen goes black. So with that extra monitor there, I'd see what I'm getting from the camera. It would still transmit it over here to this monitor, and that way I'd get that same feed on both monitors. Now I've got to say, aside from the size of these, which to me feels a little bit big, even though I know they're not for HDMI transmitters, it's just that having that extra thing on top of your camera is always just a bit of a chore. Aside from the size of them, I absolutely love these things. The design is great, it's nice and solid. You've got all of your controls, power, LED indicators, all of that there on one side, and on the other side you've got your HDMI ports in and out, as well as DC power if you wanted to use DC power. If you had this on a monitor stand for a director, for example, you could just use DC power instead of running through a battery. On top you've got the 2 antenna, which you can angle according to where your receiver is going to be. Now, by the way, for antenna, you want to point this flat folding up face towards your receiver. Same on a drone. You'll get a much better range out of it instead of pointing the 2 points like directly at it like that. Basically there, you're pointing at the sky. There you go, little known fact, how antenna work. So here I just want to have them sort of roughly like that. There we go, lovely. Now the batteries this thing uses are pretty standard. They're the Sony NPF batteries. Here I've got a little 930, is it? Is it a 930? The small ones? No, it's not 930. 530. I forget. It's an NPF battery, but the small ones. But you can put any size of NPF on here. Obviously the 970 ones, they're gonna last you forever. These little ones here, I've not had to recharge them yet. Battery seems to be doing fine and I've used it for a few days now. The actual linking process is really easy. Let me just turn these off with these nice little handy power buttons, which I love. I love having an actual switch instead of a button. I'm just gonna turn these sideways. By the way, the Coke there is not product placement. I just like it. All right, so I'll just switch the transmitter on. And if I can find the power switch, switch the receiver on. And I just have a look at what happens on that monitor. You get your load up screen, lovely. It says it's linking. Takes a little while to link and to boot up. Up the corner there it says searching TX, which is the transmitter. And there we go, found it. Now as you can see, there is a tiny bit of latency there. I'm going to show you a comparison of movements like this with this wireless link and then linking the camera directly to the monitor, so you can see the difference in latency, because it's not all down to this. There is some element of latency just from the HDMI out of the camera. But here you go, look. Okay, so now let's just unplug the transmission, unplug that HDMI there, plug that one into the monitor, and now what we're getting is a direct feed from the camera to the monitor. Now here's the latency for this. Not such a huge difference, unless you're really like going for precision slow-mo action sequence that you need every single frame at a higher frame rate to be precise. I think this is an acceptable delay. So let's just switch all this back. Okay. So as you saw in terms of setup, it's really straightforward to set it up. You have a pairing button in case for some reason they're not pairing. You've got a little micro USB port to do some upgrades for firmware if you need any down the line. You might be able to do things like improve the latency. You never know. And then you can also just switch the channel in case you were doing a multicam shoot and you wanted to have two monitors side by side, or a monitor that can take multiple HDMI feeds in and make a grid. Well, then you could have two of these pairs working on different channels. You wouldn't get any interference that way. In terms of mounting it, as you can see, this is on a little hot shoe or cold shoe adapter, which is in the 1/4 inch thread that's at the bottom of the transmitter unit. And then on the front, there's these two little threads here where you can add an adapter plate, which also has a 1/4 inch thread on it. Slight gripe with this, I don't know why they don't include two of these instead of just one, so that you can mount both of these on the front instead of having to mount one of them from underneath. I would just include the two. The other thing is that it doesn't come with any HDMI cables, which means that you have to go out and get yourself a short HDMI cable, which is full HDMI to full HDMI instead of micro HDMI to full HDMI. I didn't have any short cables that were full HDMI to full HDMI. I don't know what the actual full HDMI name is, so I'm calling it full HDMI. Didn't have any of these cables at home because I only use them for my TV, like PlayStation to TV. So I only had one that was 1 meter long. Ideally, I'd have something like this, a thin little whimsy cable that can go from this to this without having a load of excess. And it would be great if they included that in the pack. But then I guess, I don't know, is it necessary? I think it would be nice. It's not necessary, but it would be nice. I think another thing that could have been nice is a battery LED level indicator that just goes on a color based on the charge that's in the battery. It's never 100% accurate, obviously, but at least it would give you an idea of how much charge you have left in that battery, you know, before it dies on you mid-shoot because you thought you charged it more than it had. One thing that is nice, what you saw in the what's in the box segment, is that it comes with a couple of spare antennae. Now the reason it's called the Mars300 is because it has a promised range of 300 feet, which is roughly about 100 meters. Now I can't imagine why you would want to separate camera and monitor by about 100 meters, unless you were shooting like one long action scene where you just have to run with the camera on a Steadicam or something, and you're just running and running and running, and your director doesn't want to run, and so the director or the producer are just sat there in a little tent, cozy and warm, with a cup of tea or coffee, some buns, just sitting there thinking, you know what, I'm glad I'm not running. That's the only situation that I can imagine that you might want to have that kind of range. but it's handy to have, and it kind of promises you that you're going to have a nice strong signal between them, so that even if you're like 10 meters, 15, 20 meters apart, you're not going to have any kind of dropouts in signal. So that's nice. It's a good range. And so in case you didn't watch my previous video that I mentioned where I showed you how I mount this follow focus, the reason that I have this little unit on here with this, the monitor died. I wonder when the monitor died. With this, I don't know why they don't include 2 of these instead of just 1. I wonder when the monitor died. It's like minutes ago, you were laughing at me going, his monitor's died, he's not even realized. Okay, well the monitor's dead, but the reason that I have this on here is so that I can pull focus and see, you know, if there was battery still, and see what I'm actually pulling focus to. So essentially I have a follow focus rig in one hand, I have a camera operator who's using this with the monitor that's on the A6500 right now, who has this on a gimbal or handheld or shoulder rig or whatever. They can see what they're shooting, it's transmitting to me, and I can pull focus, or I have someone else pull focus and I'm operating the camera, and you get it. That way, if you are operating the camera and you're doing an action scene that really requires you to nail that framing, and you can't be worrying about focus because you're using manual focus lenses, well, it allows you to offload that responsibility to someone else whose role is solely to focus, a focus puller, you might call them. So by doing that, you allow yourself to just be a little bit more free with the creative process when you're shooting by having those extra hands to help you. So would I recommend this unit to you if you're looking for an HDMI wireless transmission system for a sort of indie budget? Yes, absolutely. I think at that price point, it's definitely worth the solid build quality, the extra antenna it comes with so that you have a little bit of security in the future, because this thing's not going to break, but these might. The fact that it's got a very sort of universal power source with these NPF batteries, and the latency is just really, really minor. I mean, I would almost say negligible. At that price point, you can't go wrong. Now, if you are interested in getting your hands on one of these Mars300 packages, there are links in the description. And if you do go ahead and get them, do leave a comment in the comments section. I'd love to know what you think about them, how you find using them for your shoots. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and hit that subscribe button to get more videos from me at dodmedia. I don't know why I looked over there. It's gear reviews like this. It's also tutorials in After Effects, in Premiere Pro, in Photoshop, and in Lightroom, and occasionally Illustrator. You can follow me on Instagram as well, at dodmedia. But that's it for now, and I'll see you later. Cheers.